I generally ask 3 questions of any company, and I generally tell people don't do anything with a company unless you have a solid answer on these 3 questions. One is the demand side, which people usually understand. What's the long-term growth? The second is the competitive advantage, because these are some of the most ferociously competitive markets you've ever seen. The third one is the one people get stuck on, which is the state an active force in this industry, and what are their interests? And a lot of times the answer is no. In e-commerce, for the most part, the state, by which I mean the party and the government together, doesn't have many interests outside of the normal regulation that you would see in any industry. It's not an industry player, it's a referee. We could say the same for retail. We could say the same for private equity. We could say it for a lot of industries, beer. And even those industries are often dominated by state-owned entities, which the beer industry is. The state isn't an active force. It's an external regulator. However, if you get a yes to that answer, like consumer credit, which was definitely the ant scenario, like healthcare, like education, the state is a player, a referee and a player. And the number one thing you need to know is, what are they trying to accomplish? Sometimes the answer, like in AI, like in electric vehicles, like in mass entrepreneurship, like in a lot of digital, is to do everything they can to help. And that's the mother of all catalysts. If you look at what the state's doing in electric vehicles and semiconductors in China, you're not going to get a better catalyst than that. Oftentimes the answer is go slow. There are social issues here, like healthcare, like education. And when companies sort of run counter to that, which is I think what happened with EdTech, you see them step in to dial them back. You know, the EdTech thing, you know, this sort of hit to that sector, the government's been talking about this from 2015. I heard about this 2014. The consumer credit issue, which Ant Financial got delayed, that was identified as a major risk to the entire country by the highest levels of the Chinese government in 2010. They do telegraph this stuff well in advance if you're paying attention and you're thinking at the industry level. But you got to get an answer to that question. So to answer your question, if I'm bullish on e-commerce, top to bottom, I'm bullish on retail, I'm bullish on media and communications, with some caveats, because sometimes that becomes a cultural issue. Consumer credit, go slow. Obviously, healthcare, go slow. And you get good reads on a lot of these sectors, and then sometimes it's a little muddy. So, you know, I don't know how you get into global internet without being in China, which is increasingly a China-Asia story. It's getting harder to separate those two. Most of the big stuff in Southeast Asia, they're tied to the China giants. I mean, how do you do global internet without the China-Asia story?